welcome to Transcendental Transformation, the place where spirituality and transformation unite. Host Miss Raina imparts truth so that you can break through your limiting beliefs and evolve into a deeper consciousness. As you go about your day, remember, before every breakthrough, there is a breakdown. And now, let's start the show.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Transcendental Transformation. I'm your host, Miss Raina, and today is Tuesday, January 16th, 2018. As always, we are coming live from the W4CY studios here in West Palm Beach, and I hope everyone has had an amazing week. Well, this week we had the flag football tournament last week, and we had the football tournament, and we won the championship. We're back-to-back two-time champs. I did pretty well. I scored 4 touchdowns, but I got no interceptions this time. Last year I got a bunch, but this year I got none. But, you know, the whole team played well. I really enjoyed this new team. It was really nice to play with a new group of girls. I wasn't sure how it was going to work out, and we went undefeated through the whole tournament. And it's nice because, you know, when you have a group of girls or a team, even a coach, you know, that just gets it and that just understands it's a team effort, and, you know, it just makes sports that much more. Plus, we were raising money for cancer, for all the people that have cancer. I believe it was for the American Cancer Society. I'm not sure. But we were raising a lot of money. I don't know the exact figure yet. They haven't posted it. I think last year it was some insane amount, like 25,000 or something. So this year I'm not sure if we'll meet that much because the attendance wasn't as much as it was last year. But still, there's a lot of people that came out to support this cause. And thank you everyone who came out to watch us and support us, and, you know, and donated money to help those in need. And so the real winners are those that beat disease. You know, I mean, trophies, all that stuff doesn't mean anything. You know, whether we won or lost, it doesn't mean anything. We were out there for the cause, for people to support them and inspire them to keep going no matter what happens in life. And, you know, and hopefully they make it through. So I'm going to send all my best wishes to all those fighting disease right now. We also yesterday I also went to the South Florida Fair last night. I had a great time yesterday. We went with my friend Caleb, and you know, I wasn't sure how it was going to be because, you know, with everything going on with my health and everything, you know, I wasn't sure. I love to ride rides. You know, I skydive and do all sorts of stuff, but, you know, I was limited ever since with certain rides with my hip injury after I got ran over, and then I wasn't sure how my head and equilibrium and everything was going to feel. But I did go on a couple rides. I was able to make a couple big rides, and you know, at least enjoy some cotton candy, a corn dog, got to see some shows, some cute little animals, and all sorts of stuff. So, Chad, how you doing, my man?
I am doing good. Well, congratulations on your undefeated team.
Thank you.
And your 4 scores. Is that Russian? Is that receiving?
That was receptions.
Really?
Yes.
So you go running and catching that ball, huh?
I go running and catching. Believe it or not, this body somewhat still moves.
Sounds like quite a team. Well, good for you, ladies.
Yes, thank you. So how have you been? How was your weekend?
Doing well. We had 2 gigs. We had a gig on the beach, and then we had a gig on the Intercoastal. You ever heard of the Banana Boat?
Yes, I have.
So we love playing there, and we did a little gig there from 3 to 7. You know, did the whole sunset happy hour type deal. It was very nice. I had a good weekend. It was well balanced. No complaints.
Very nice.
The weather was a little chilly here and there.
It was.
But it was perfect. I mean, some of the greatest weather's going on right now as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, you know, that's...
You don't like the cold?
I don't like the cold.
You ready for that summer to kick back in?
Yes, I try to be happy for all those that like the cold, but no.
Well, enjoy it while it lasts, because it won't last long. That's for sure.
Absolutely. You going to the fair?
Probably not. You know, I've done the fair a few times. You know, I enjoy it for the most part, but nothing's really changed that much in order to bring me back. If you could do a drastic change, I might come back. But no, I enjoy fairs, but I've already done it. I'm good.
Well, that's all right.
Probably going to skip this year.
Yeah, well, that's okay. You know, you do, like you said, you do one. I'm still the kid inside. I still like the car.
Is it still the same?
No, they've actually changed it around. I mean, there's still the rides, but they're changing out the rides. There's a bunch of new rides. I mean, you still got the animal farms and everything, the ice shows and everything. And they seem to be upping like things. Things seem to. It's not so ghetto anymore, if I want to say. It seems to be a little bit more. I don't know if that's
the right word, but what rides did you ride? You said you didn't ride them all, but which ones did you ride?
Well, I wanted to go on the big one that spun around where you have two seats and you're just sitting in a bucket and it flies you around 200 feet in the air.
That didn't.
I couldn't do that with what's going on with me right now, but I did do the Ring of Fire, the cart that goes in the big ring that goes back and forth.
Oh, those are pretty hairball.
Yeah, and I did the spinny thing that you sit. It's like a bobsled thing that you go there.
It goes up a little bit and comes down.
Yes, and then I did
circle.
And then I did one of my favorite rides, which was the Mouse Trap, which is they call it the Mighty Mouse, but it's like a kiddie adult ride. It's kind of cool. I
is it
like
a roller coaster?
Yeah, it's like a small roller coaster, but you send this thing and it spins and goes backwards
as
down
you're going. Okay, cool. Yeah, right on. That sounds good on the back. But all's good in my department. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Chad. All right, everybody. If you want to give us a call tonight, the number is 561-623-9429. You can web chat us on the W4CY.com website. You can download the W4CY radio app to make sure you listen to all the great programming here. And make sure you pay attention to my YouTube channel for the archive, which is youtube.com/Transcendental Transformation. So let's get into tonight's topic because I got a lot of information to cover and I don't know if I'm going to get through it all today or something. If I don't, maybe I'll make this show into a 2-part series. I don't know what I'm going to do. But tonight's topic is all about chronic fatigue syndrome. If you're like most Americans, you're tired. You're fatigued, you have little to no energy, your mind is a mental fog, you have probably pretty bad memory or maybe you have bad short-term memory, and you have sleeping issues. There's a lot of people who even experience constant headaches, joint pain, and even depression. This is a rising problem in this country. I know for a fact, even I went through this not too long ago before I figured out that I was actually had a physical illness. But you know, chronic fatigue syndrome is the warning signs of disease. It is a disease. It's classified as a disease, and we'll get into that in a second. But it is a disease, and it is coming to the point where, you know, most Americans, I think the statistics were like 7 or 8 out of Americans seem to have chronic fatigue. It's a really astounding number. I was really shocked when I looked it up. And, you know, it's one of those things where we have to be able to, we have to change this. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't like feeling tired. I've always been one that had a ton of energy. I was never fatigued. My mind was so super sharp. I was able to, you know, think of things and figure out things. Of course, my dyslexia sometimes gets in the way, but that's okay. It never slowed me down. And then all of a sudden, we don't take care of ourselves, do we? We live in a society where we overwork ourselves. I mean, we believe in overwork. We work round the clock. We have to produce for everything. We're do, go. It's all the time. We're in a constant state of pleasing one another. And, you know, and that's one of the reasons why I work for myself. You know, it's like I like to set my own schedule. I like to take my breaks and stuff because a lot of times we're material driven. If you know, a lot of times we'll work for a company. We work for these ideas and stuff where we have bosses that pressure us, especially if you're in sales or marketing or some type of thing where, you know, income. I mean, obviously all businesses are income driven, but there's certain ones that seem to be focused more on it than others. And if you work for a high pressure situation, well, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. The sleepless nights, the 80 hours a week work. Sometimes you sleep at work, you pull out a mat or a blow up mat in your office and sleep, and you get a couple hours nap and you go back at it right away. And there's only so much of this a body can take because, you know, I mean, we have, and we're going to get into tonight of why. Because a lot of people, you know, according to a lot of us believe that we can, you know, that we must gain something in order to be happy. We have created this society, we have created this mental picture of saying, well, you know what, because what are we taught when we're younger? We're always taught, well, what are you going to, I mean, I know I was asked when I was younger, you know, what are you going to be when you grow up? And you always had to say these big things like, you know, maybe a baseball player, fireman, or a doctor, or an astronaut, or something extravagant. And that's great. You know, that's great to have dreams and everything like that. But, you know, I was raised in business. I was very fortunate enough to have a family that had their own business, a very successful business. And, you know, right from an early age, I was put pressure on to take over the company. And, you know, it started to train me that I had to achieve all this because my dad always said, well, here's my daughter. She's going to take this company and make it even greater and make even more money and spread it even to more states. And, you know, from an early on, I was been taught conditioning to go, 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 that I had to achieve this greatness. I had to achieve what past my parents in order to be successful. And this drains us, doesn't us? Because those of us who like to worry, I know as an earth sign, I like to worry. It's in my nature, spleen, stomach, damp issues all the time. But worrying is one of the things that used to be in my nature, even bigger than it is now. But a lot of us stress out about that stuff because we must achieve, the money to be happy, or the trophies, or the awards, to be successful, to get the big job, to get the high positions in life. And, and this puts a lot of pressure on us. If you're one of those that work from home, or maybe you take care of a family, because, hey, let me tell you something, ladies, or the men who stay home and take care of the children and the family, it is a 24-hour day job. And you put so much stress on yourself to do this stuff, because you gotta, in your mind, you sit there and say, well, my family comes first. I have to put my husband or my wife first, then the kids have to come first, and that's a 24-hour day. I gotta make sure dinner's ready. I gotta do the laundry. I gotta cook, clean, do all this stuff. Then I gotta do all the errands. I gotta make sure all the kids are to the practices and everything. And just talking about it, I'm already exhausted. My mind's running around trying to picture all these people doing all these different things, all in a 24-hour period. And we do this day in and day out. We run from the time we wake up to the time we sleep. And, and even when we're sleeping, our mind is going. For many of us who have chronic fatigue syndrome, or CFS, our sleeping really hinders it. How many of us sit there and as soon as we go to fall asleep, we're really tired, and the moment we go to lay down, we wake right up and we're like, oh my God, I forgot to do this, this, and this. I got to do this tomorrow, and I got to do, and it's exhausting. And then you're up to 4 or 5 in the morning, can't sleep, and you got to get up at 6 a.m. And this is what I'm talking about. And what if I said, and the thought of the word rest or relaxation is absurd to most of us, right? I mean, who would want to sit and relax? Who'd want to sit and spend time with ourselves? Who would want to sit and do these things and, and relax when we could be doing all these different things to run us ragged? But we've truly tricked ourselves into thinking that we have to do all these things to fulfill our lives. And this must change. In China and in other countries, they actually have a very shortened work week, and even during the day, they take 2-hour breaks. It's mandatory. The Mondays are off, and and then during the day, you get between maybe 12 and 2 or 1 and 3 or something like that, where you get to do whatever it is you want to do, and this is healthy. Plus, a lot of the companies have programs that have, massage and yoga and relaxation, and a little bit here in America. A couple major corporations are starting to adapt that, but a lot of us, we do not take care of ourselves, whether it's in the workplace or that. And we pressure ourselves, and we allow our bosses, we allow our families, we allow all these ideas to dictate our lives. And if I asked you, how much downtime do you guys really do? How much is that? How much downtime how many people can sit there and say, well, minus sitting in front of the TV eating, I don't consider that downtime. Real downtime, where you're actually maybe taking a hot bath, or spending time maybe having some tea in a chair out by the fire, or just sitting, maybe listening to some music in the background and just relaxing in the thing, or just shutting down the mind, and not even reading, because, reading consumes blood. When you read and use your brain and use your eyes, it consumes blood, and believe it or not, it can tire you out, and it keeps the mind going, it keeps the body going. So as much as sometimes we think it's a relaxing idea, and that it actually is an actual activity that we're doing, but how many of us can say that we actually spend at least 5 hours a week in downtime? And that's not bedtime watching TV. That's not sitting at the thing for, an hour or two, like right when we get home. And actual real downtime, time to spend. How many of us sit there? When I grew up, we used to have dinner with our families. Do we do that anymore? Do we sit down with our families with the TVs off, the phones off, and everything? I don't know. I don't have children, so I don't know anything. But out of everybody that I know that has family, I don't see much of that anymore. I think out of all the friends I have right now, I think only one family does that, and it's only so often. So, I mean, these are the times that we have to do it, and we have to think about this as, how much time do we spend with our friends? How much time do we spend with our family and have a conversation? Maybe when you guys listen to this radio show, maybe this is your downtime, but at the same time, even listening to the show, yes, especially the first time when you're super attentive of the show, you're listening, you're being active, but how many of us sit down and have conversations? Now everything's through texting, tweeting and stuff, and that's what I'm talking about. And we're spending time with ourselves. I know with my students, I always try to teach them to slow down and do meditation. And meditation seems so simple to a lot of people, but it's really not, because they're always like, well, as soon as I sit down, I got to do this, this goes through, and then I'm trying to get to all these places, and it just never does. But our self is the most important thing. So let's get into chronic fatigue syndrome, because chronic fatigue syndrome is known as myalgic encephalomyelitis. And, this is a condition that when you feel, that actually says when you feel you're so tired that you can't do normal activities. Anything normal is going to exhaust you. And even little bits of exercise, and I know a lot of people that have chronic fatigue syndrome so bad that even walking seems to exhaust them. But at the same time, and we'll get into it later, they say do light exercise to bring back some of the energy. But but this is the case: is when you're so tired, you're so exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically, that you can't do any normal activities. And we feed ourselves what? We feed ourselves coffee and caffeine and monster drinks and Red Bulls and stuff. And let me tell you something, people. If you don't believe that those monster drinks and Red Bulls and everything can hurt you, they kill people all the time. And, and they are very dangerous. They lead to cancer and everything. I don't know how many reports I see, not daily, but, maybe monthly and stuff. I see quite a few reports of people that were bodybuilders and athletes, and both female and male, that used to drink those things and then end up with cancer. And some of them make it through, some of them pass, and that's where they lead it to. So if you think that downing all this coffee and downing all this, caffeine and downing all these sugar drinks is healthy for you because you got to please that boss and you got to go, or you got to do these things for your family, I'm going to tell you that you are doing nothing for anybody except hurting yourself. Because if anything happens to you, they'll find someone else to replace you, and they'll keep going. If something happens with you, then the family loses out on it. And don't you want to be there for your family? Don't you want to be there to enjoy life and not just work? I mean, some of us enjoy life and work. I enjoy my work and stuff like that. But, don't you want to be there like fully for the people? And per Western medicine says that this is unknown. We don't know what the cause is. It's not understood. We don't get it. We don't understand what's going on in the body in order for this to happen. I don't know. And it's possible that, it's also possible that chronic fatigue syndrome is another illness or has other illnesses involved in it. And you know what? I'm going to kind of agree. I'm not a big fan of Western medicine, but I do kind of agree with that statement where it could be several things at once that are causing this. And we're going to get into it because I'm going to explain to you what is going on into your body. And this is going to be, yes, an Eastern medicine approach, but it makes sense. And the reason why it makes sense is because they've been studying this for that. And I wish Western medicine would catch on to this stuff. They like to look at blood tests and say, well, all your levels are good, you're good. Well, look, I went to the hospital at Thanksgiving. I had parasites. I had all this stuff going on. My liver, my kidneys, my stomach, spleen, everything was, because of this infection. And they told me I was healthy that I was having a panic attack. And I'm saying, look, I'm feeling like I'm going to die any second. And they blew me off. And I even asked them, I said, well, check me for parasites. And they blew me off because the test showed that everything was good. And it's not good because they like to look at tests and say that. And I know a lot of you who feel sick, who have chronic fatigue, have fibromyalgia, go to these doctors and get written off and laughed at and told, it's in your head, or you're just stressed out. And yes, stress causes a lot of things. Yes, stress causes, and chronic fatigue is part of stress. It really is. But we have to be able to do this. And there's no test per Western medicine. There's no test available. And this lasts longer than, you have to be able, chronic fatigue, anything chronic is an idea that lasts longer than 6 months. If it's 3 months or shorter, it's considered acute, especially within a couple weeks and stuff, or a week. But if it's more than 6 months or comes and goes more than 6 months, then it's considered chronic. So if you've had this, and most people notice that they have chronic fatigue syndrome after feeling like this for years. I mean, they feel horrible. I mean, when they get home, they just plop on the couch. And I know before all this stuff came to a head in my body, I was getting to the point where I was like, I'm eating healthy, I'm doing all these things, and no matter what I eat, and no matter what I do, and I'm doing everything by the book, and everything with my knowledge, I just couldn't gain strength. I couldn't gain, energy. And then come to find out, well, all this was in my body. And I said, well, no wonder why. And I'm going to do a show on parasites maybe next week or the week after that, because parasites is an amazing thing. And let me tell you something. If you have a disease, you have parasites. Parasites are in us. Bacteria is in us. It's all the same. And, and you're going to have to understand that, behind all disease is parasites. And so we'll get into that later. But the symptoms of chronic fatigue syndrome, are, like I said, extreme mental and physical fatigue, not feeling well all the time. You just feel down, you feel sick, even though you're not sick. It's just, just anything you do, it's just a chore. Especially activities, sleeping issues, you toss, turn, everything, physical pain. How many of you that chronic fatigue have physical pain? Your joints ache, just your body, your lower back, just everything aches. Poor concentration, memory, even those are sensitive to light and noise and emotions, confusion, slow thinking, muscle weakness, and even a lot of people experience flu-like syndromes or flu-like symptoms. And a lot of times you have lower body temperature, dizziness, lightheadedness, and even depression. And we will get into this as soon as we come back with these messages from the life of Raina.
A message from the life of Raina. We live in a world faced with many tough challenges. Our lives become chaotic and filled with disaster ever so quickly, most of the time before we even realize. Our issues beat down our mental mindset, and an imbalance of emotions become prevalent. The life of Raina is dedicated to helping people on the deepest spiritual level. Miss Raina, the creator of Transcendental Development and Growth, works on your core issues and finds the solutions which allow you to break free from the emotional bondages of life, helping you achieve the life you've always wanted to live. Isn't it time that you lived life for you? Call the Life of Raina, 561-846-2190, and schedule your appointment today. That's 561-846-2190. Or email thelifeofraina@icloud.com.
Okay, everyone, we are back. You're listening to Miss Raina on Transcendental Transformations, and we are talking about chronic fatigue syndrome. If you'd like to give us a call us at 561-623-9429 or web chat us on the W4CY.com website. So as I was saying, I was giving you guys the list of symptoms, and even the flu-like symptoms, body temperature drops, dizziness, lightheaded, and depression. And, depression is a big part of it, because when you don't feel good, and when you don't feel good about things, when you don't feel good about life, and you're just struggling to get through life, you become depressed. And we're going to get into why you become depressed in just a couple minutes. But what is the Western medicine solution to this? And if you go on their websites or you ask a doctor or whatever, they're going to tell you, well, you need to change your schedule. You need to learn to eat or learn better sleep habits, get regular gentle exercise, maybe eat a little healthier, and these are the things that they tell you to do. And partly, yes, I agree with that. Yes, you do need to adjust your schedule, start making me time. One of the first things I do with my students is I make sure that with all my students, I make sure with all my students is that what I do is I make sure that they adjust their schedule and take breaks during the schedule. So if they're working 8 to 5, I make sure they take several breaks throughout the stint, even if it's a couple minute break or 3 minute, 5 minutes. But I always make sure that they take a good break during the middle of the day. And if, well, they can tell you, oh, learn better sleeping habits. Well, how do I learn better sleeping habits? Tell me how to learn better sleep. And the only gentle exercise we know is walking, and walking is wonderful. You should always walk, especially after a meal. After each meal, you should always just go for a casual walk, even if it's a couple blocks, because it helps the digestion process. It helps tonify the spleen and the chi, and it helps. But this is very vague, isn't it? If I told you, oh, you have chronic fatigue, just change your schedule, go, find better sleeping habits and go walk. It's vague, right? Well, that doesn't do much. You might try that, and then you're going to say, well, Miss Raina, I don't know. It didn't change anything. It didn't do anything. And it leaves you feeling unsure. It leaves you feeling no answers. And that's the thing that I don't like. When I was getting into medicine, I was getting into it, and I would actually want to become a Western doctor. And what ended up happening was I was like, I didn't find any answers. I felt like everything was blown off. If it wasn't by this book, or it wasn't A plus B equals C, and if it wasn't that, they had no answers. There was no outside thinking. It was either this pill for this for this, or this for this, and there's no outside thinking. And then I stumbled across, a naturopath, and I stumbled across Chinese medicine, Oriental medicine, all this stuff, and I found that there's so many outside thinkings. There's so many avenues of ways of why the body is the way it is. And I look at it and I said, wow, man, this really makes sense, backed by thousands of years. I mean, Western medicine has only been around, a couple hundred years, if that. And, and you're talking about people who have studied bodies for thousands of years and understood herbology and understood the body and what the organs do. So what then do we do? Well, we turn to find the real answers. We turn to find places. We keep going until we find someone to listen to us and find what is going on. So first, let's understand what chronic fatigue syndrome is. The first thing I'm going to tell you is it's a deficiency. Chronic fatigue syndrome is a deficiency. Your body is deficient. You are deficient, plain and simple. Whether, and mostly chi deficient. I'm going to refer to chi for often throughout this thing. Chi is energy. It's the vitality energy of the body. So when I say chi deficiency, that means you have low energy. And eventually chi deficiency leads to chi stagnation, which creates pain and all sorts of weird stuff in the body. Poor memory, all this stuff. And, but your body is deficient. You have, when we were young, we used to sit there and say, oh, you're young, you can eat anything. No, you can't. Just because you're young and you're able to put it away and not gain weight, that doesn't mean you're hurting your body. You're hurting your body, you're injuring your organs, and you're not giving it the proper nutrients for it to do. But your body needs energy. It needs the chi in order for it to operate. So, this is the most fundamental thing. I mean, this is the most fundamental thing to understand. When you have chronic fatigue syndrome, that means, yes, you're tired because you have no energy. You're not supplying the body with proper energy. And that doesn't mean because you eat salads every day or 3 times a day, that doesn't mean that you're eating healthy. A lot of people think that, I'll make a salad, but then I'll pour ranch dressing, blue cheese, and Caesar salad all over it, and yeah, I'm eating healthy. No, because one, a lot of those dressings are just as fattening as the McDonald's Big Mac meal with fries and a Coke. It has same nutritional value, and 2, it's cold. And when I get into the food part of the show, I'll talk about what cold in nature foods are versus warm in nature foods. But but in order to get chi, when you get chi, you get your energy. You get it from pre and postnatal chi. Prenatal chi is from birth. It's from your parents. It's your growth and development. It's how your body's going to grow. And this is why I fault the parents for things that happen to the children when they're born. A lot of times, like especially diabetes and different things like that, cancers. And I know that may not be a popular thing I'm about to say, but truly, I mean, you are passing your DNA and your genes onto a child, and especially if you're pregnant, even if you're the husband or the dad or whatever, and you're you're just as big a part of it, because what you put on that body is what you're going to pass on to your children. And so if your cells and your DNA is broken down due to poor food choices, due to an unhealthy lifestyle, drinking, smoking, drugs, whatever, you are passing that DNA structure down to those children. And that's why all of a sudden all these diabetes and all these different things are popping up in children. Diabetes 1 is rising like crazy because we're at McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Taco Bell, all these things, high sugars, monsters, and all this stuff all at once. And then you're giving it to your kids. And of course, the body's so ingenious that it uses what it can to make life. But at what cost? So that's what happens with prenatal chi. Then the postnatal chi is after you're born. That comes from food. Postnatal chi is from your food. So what you put in your mouth is transformed from the spleen and the stomach and through the kidneys and the lungs and made into chi. And you breathe chi through your lungs. Every time you take a breath, you're breathing in chi, you're breathing in energy, you're breathing in life. I mean, how long can we last without oxygen? What, a minute? Not even. How long can we last without food? Couple weeks without water? What, 3-4 days? And so we need this. This is life force. This is postnatal chi. It is must. Your spleen, your kidneys, and your lungs are the main sources of getting chi. The liver is involved as well. But it's a side. When your liver is deficient through blood stagnation, a lot of times liver blood stagnation happens when you have chi deficiency. And I know you guys don't understand that. But what ends up happening, that's a side effect from the spleen and the kidneys and the lungs being deficient, because you have to remember that all your systems of your body are one, and it's going to keep doing that. Your kidneys are your essence, your fundamental energy of the body. They are the foundation of your life. When your essence is gone, you're dead. You're out of here. You're going back home, checked out. That's what, and your essence is what we need to replenish, because you have a certain amount that you're going to have from when you're born, and then there's a certain amount that you have to replenish. And so your spleen, what is the function of your spleen? Well, your spleen is to transform and transport vital energy and fluids. So it takes all the stuff that you put in your body and it transforms it and transports it to other parts of the body. It maintains digestion and the function of digestion, and it controls the blood through the vessels. And so this is important, because the spleen is, to me, in Oriental medicine, I know a lot of people say the heart's the master of the body, but to me, maybe on a spiritual sense, but to me, the spleen is the guy to go to. It is the organ, the main one that you need to harness, that you need to treat the best out of all the things that you need to treat the spleen, because if the spleen doesn't do its job, every other organ suffers from then on out. And so your kidneys won't get it, the essence, your lungs won't get the essence, your heart, your liver, etc., gallbladder, everything doesn't get what it needs to do. And the lungs govern the chi. That means it brings in chi. It's responsible for physical vitality. It interacts with the skin and produces a thing called wei chi. Wei chi is the chi that defends against pathogenic invasions. So that means when pathogens come, if you have strong wei chi, if you have strong lung chi, you're not going to get sick. When you don't have strong lungs, when you don't have strong wei chi, the pathogens come in and attack you. And that's what happens when we become sick. So I'm going to get into diet for just a short little bit, because yes, we have to talk about it, but I know you people are so sick of hearing it. I know that you know what to eat and what not to eat, but the choice still is yours. You have to choose. If you're choosing to eat processed foods, sugars, artificial dyes, artificial sweeteners that injure the spleen, all of those injure the spleen. The spleen likes things warm. It likes things spicy. It likes things like chicken and broths and ginger and turmeric, things like that. It likes heat. The stomach has to maintain a temperature of 100 degrees in order for proper digestion. When you add in artificial sweeteners or in processed food dyes, it can't do that. When you add in cold in nature foods injure the spleen too. And you're going to ask me, well, Miss Raina, what is cold in nature foods? And cold in nature foods are things like leafy greens, cucumbers, watermelons, pineapples, things that are really cold cold in nature. And I don't mean cold in temperature. That doesn't mean if you pick it and you put it in the freezer, it's cold in nature. Because you can take a hot pepper, put it in the refrigerator, and it's still hot in nature. Things that are spicy are either hot in nature or warm in nature. They give off, when they're processed and digested by the body, it brings a heat or warming nature into your body and goes to those appropriate organs. When you eat cold in nature food, it cools the body down and it goes to the appropriate organs. The problem is we like cold foods. We like sweets. We like sugars. We like to eat those salads all the time. And that's why I say eating a salad at night is killing the spleen. Because what happens when you eat cold in nature foods or all this junk? It injures the spleen and dampness occurs. And dampness. Even I have dampness now, and it almost took me out. If you don't think dampness is serious, dampness is very serious. Because if you have so in other words, if you are overweight or have fat on you, and slow and sluggish and all that stuff, Chad's checking himself out. But if you have that stuff, then you have dampness in you. If your mind is foggy and you can't breathe and you can't breathe properly and all this stuff, and you're just constantly tired, no matter how, you have dampness in you. And this is very dangerous, because when spleen chi is deficient, when the spleen can't do its job and doesn't have the energy to transform and transport body fluids, it creates dampness. Body fluids have to be clear and thin so they can go back and forth and do what they need to do. Dampness becomes heavy. It becomes sticky. It's a sticky fluid that's very hard to get rid of. I always tell people, never play with what's really sticky. I don't know. Like you have some, like, what do kids play with that's really sticky?
Taffy.
Taffy. Okay, perfect, Chad. So we have taffy. You play, and then your hands are all sticky. But when you put it on something, trying to get it out, if it ever gets caught in your hair or gum, the same thing. You can't pull it out, and that's what it does inside your body. It's hard to get rid of. And when it settles, where do you think it settles? It settles in the lower body, the legs, and the abdomen. It settles in the because that's why we gain weight in the midsection. That's why, especially us women, where do we gain our fat? In our booty and in our stomach. And men gain a beer belly. And that's because that's dampness settling in. That's all damp settling in. And also it settles in the intestines. And when it settles in the intestines, it gives us loose stool and cloudy urination. And this isn't fun, because a lot of times that cloudy urination is burning. Because a lot of times it'll produce damp heat. There is damp cold too as well. But when we're talking about a lot of sicknesses, especially the way we eat, a lot of times it's going to transform itself to damp heat. Manifestations of having dampness, again, tiredness, and listen to the similarities between chronic fatigue and having damp. Tiredness, heavy feeling, fuzzy head, mind fog, vaginal discharge, difficulty waking up, difficulty sleeping. And that difficulty moving, tired after exercise. Sound familiar? Well, there's a reason for it, because dampness and chronic fatigue are one and the same. And there are many different aspects. There's kidney yin deficiency, kidney yang deficiency, liver, blood stagnation. There's many different forms of chronic fatigue syndrome as far as Chinese medicine. But when the basis of it is this. Eventually, all of this leads to all those other things. Because if your spleen and stomach cannot process the food and transport those nutrients to the place it needs to do. I always tell people this. If you have a packing company that's like, let's say UPS packages things, and you're a company and you're waiting for your inventory, and UPS can't deliver its inventory or not enough, and you have all these customers saying, hey, I'm waiting for my package. Why isn't your company delivering? Why don't you have inventory? And what's going to happen? You lose the customers and your business goes under, right? It's the same thing with your body. Your organs, your kidneys, your spleen, your heart, your liver, lungs, everything's like, hey, I'm waiting for my nutrients. I can't do my job if you don't do your job. And we don't. We say, this is what I'm feeding. This is all I have, so go someplace else. That's what you're basically telling your body when you eat junk. And so, the spleen needs to feed the kidneys. Remember, the kidneys are the fundamental energy, the essence, and the kidneys store the kidney chi. The essence is responsible for reproduction, growth, and development. It's the reception. The kidneys controls the reception of chi. That That means it receives the qi, and it does water metabolism too, obviously, right? It helps with urination in Western medicine. That's what they say. It helps with urination. It's the filter for our urine, but it helps water metabolism in the body. It helps regulate the fluids in the body. And if the kidneys can't do its job, it also creates dampness. It creates water, and eventually all clear, thin fluids always turn to heavy, sticky fluids because of heat. The kidneys need to take qi from the lungs. When you breathe in air, the kidneys are expecting qi, the lungs to send down qi. And it's sitting there waiting for you. But if you don't have the nutrients for the lungs to do its job either, of course you're going to survive, you're going to breathe, you're going to say, well, Miss Raina, it's got to do it someplace. But it doesn't do the job that it needs to do. And this is why so many people with chronic fatigue syndrome have issues breathing, because they can't breathe. It's like they go to do an exercise, they walk upstairs, and they're like out of breath because the lungs are so deficient. It can't pass down the qi. The kidneys can't rise the qi back up to the lungs, and it's this cycle of mess. And this is why Western medicine doesn't understand. They look at a blood test, say, no, your kidneys are working fine, your heart's beating normal, your blood pressure's normal. No, you're fine. Because they don't understand the concepts of body fluids and all these different things going on. They don't look at a lot of these things as deficiency. When your body is sufficient, you're healthy, you have energy, you sleep well, you do all these things. Whenever you have a discord of some sort in your body, you can't sleep, or you have no energy, or you can't think, you can't study, you're too angry, you're too this, it's because you have a deficiency. And maybe even an excess. Sometimes we have an excess due to a deficiency too. So it's all these little things. And you believe it or not, the kidneys also help the brain. In Chinese medicine, we call it the sea of marrow. And when the sea of marrow doesn't get fed by the kidneys, and that poor memory, fog mind, slow body reaction, like you're slow to comprehend and react things. And so this is the thing. So I want you guys to remember that this is, that chronic fatigue syndrome has many issues. It may have several issues going on, and body organs, your body organs and your body are deficient. And that's what you have to remember. And this is the time to rest. When you have chronic fatigue syndrome, you have to rest. Yes, you have to exercise a little bit, but don't go take those energy drinks and then go out to the gym and try to work out, because you're only injuring yourself. It's almost like taking a car with very little gas, dumping some type of, not gas, but some type of cleaner in it, and it just punching it just for a little bit and then expecting it to travel, and that's what you're doing to it. So the next thing I want to talk about for the next 8 minutes, because I'm not going to get through all this. There's just so much information, and I really wish I could. But the seven emotions or emotional distress injure the body. In Chinese medicine, as I've always said, emotions hurt us. They make us weaker. Even joy. I know people that say, "Oh, I'm always happy all the time. Life is good." No, that's too much joy. You have to have a balance of all these emotions and balance of all these different things in order for you to be able to be healthy. If all you see is joy, we're going to talk about it in a minute. You're injuring your heart. But the seven emotions in Chinese medicine are joy, worry, grief, fear, anger, fright, and anxiety. Joy goes to the heart. Worry goes to the spleen. So, hey, look at that. When we worry, we injure the spleen. Grief goes to the lungs. When we're sad, when we're worried and we're grieving, when we're constantly stressed over something, why can't we breathe? Because grief injures the lungs. It creates a deficiency. Fear injures the kidneys, anger the liver, fright has no organs, but anxiety blocks qi. If you have anxiety, that means you have qi stagnation. Your qi is not going fully through your body. Your energy, your vital organs are not doing their job. It's not passing the energy that it needs to go. In Western medicine, this equates to stress. They say, oh, you're stressed out. You need to start learning to de-stress. But they're not telling you, well, maybe you're too angry all the time. Maybe you're worrying too much. Maybe you're grieving. Maybe something happened, someone passed away, and you haven't learned to let go of the grieving process. I know a lot of people that do that, and we have to do that. the liver ensures that the energy or chi and blood flow to the body, its primary job is to make sure that chi and blood flow go throughout the body. In Western medicine, they say it filters the blood because you grab a liver, it's full of blood, right? Its job is to filter the blood. That's why when we drink and do drugs and punish our body, what's one of the first organs to go? The kidneys or the liver, right? Because it's the detoxifier, and its job is to make sure that the body gets the rest of its thing. But when we're stressed out or emotional, we stop the free flow of energy. We stop the energy to the vital organs, and each of those organs become injured. Those with chronic fatigue syndrome usually worry. You guys grieve all the time, anger. There's constant stress. I don't know anybody that I know that says, yes, I have chronic fatigue syndrome, that isn't always stressed out worrying. And that's probably one of the reasons why it causes it. Even if you eat healthy, you can eat the healthiest you want, but if you are emotional, if you worry, if you stress, if you have anger, if you have grief that's unresolved, you will end up with chronic fatigue syndrome. And that's why some people say, well, I eat healthy. Miss Raina, I don't know what to do. I eat healthy. And even though I eat healthy, it doesn't do it. I don't do it. I take my shakes. I do this. My vitamins, everything's great, but I feel tired all the time. It's because your body is spending too much energy trying to control these emotions. And even if it's happiness all the time, and that it's trying to spend all its time in controlling these emotions instead of allowing everything to flow. You have to, and this is why depression, anxiety, and fatigue happen. You have to allow your organs to do its job. One of the last things I want to get into, because I only have about 5 minutes left, and I don't think I'm going to get into all of it, but allergies and viruses also have a part to play. If you have allergies, or maybe you have a virus, and sometimes a virus can lead to deficiency because, we get sick, it brings our immune system down, we become deficient, and then we go, and we never get caught up. But allergies too. Did you know 75% of people with chronic fatigue syndrome have allergies? That's a big number, 75% of people. And viruses and allergy attacks, produce several types of cytokines. They're the interferon alphas and the tumor necrosis factor, and they trigger the immune system, and they cause inflammation or causes inflammation in the tissues, which allow the body to be tired and achy. That's why a lot of us ache all the time. We're tired, we're achy. And I want you to remember that inflammation is always disease. If you have disease, if you're tired, if you're achy, if you're hurting, if anything, and a mental fog, there's a form of inflammation in the body. And inflammation must be processed in order for you to start feeling better, because inflammation will lead to greater disease in the future. Hormone balances is another thing. Hormone balances in women, hormone imbalance, menopause will cause it, pregnancy, menstruation. Our cortisol in both sexes, cortisol manages stress, right? Our cortisol, we go into fight or flight, stress, cortisol kicks in. We decipher whether or not it's stressful or how we're going to handle it. And a lot of times, because we're in such a stressful society of go, you have to do this, you have deadlines, you have to make my child's this and do this, that we're burning our cortisol, we're burning our adrenals. And if you listen to my show on adrenal fatigue, I don't believe in adrenal fatigue per se, that the adrenals never get tired, but it's you create an imbalance between the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal axis. There's a communication error that ends up happening due to overstress. So all these things end up happening, and I want you to, and I didn't get to go into like what kind of supplements we want to take and how to, and that, but if you want to, if you want to hear about the rest of the stuff, because I don't think I'm going to go into it next show, but if you would like to know more information, feel free to email me. Again, I'm not going to tell you what to take or what to do. You need to go seek out a professional in your area or whatever. But if you'd like to know what the rest of the show is on, please give me an email. But I think we're going to stop there because I know we're almost out of time and stuff. And I can go on forever with this. There's so much information to go with. But I want you guys to listen to this show over and over. I know it's a lot of information, and you probably don't even know half of what I said, and that's okay. But just remember that there are a certain order of things, and if you listen to the show, I left it very basic. I left it very, even if you don't understand chi and deficiency, and that, well, deficiency is deficiency. But if you don't understand the word chi, look it up. If you don't, and dampness is a form of fluid, and it's very basic once you get understand. But just remember that all chronic fatigue is linked to all sorts of different things. So we're going to end there, and I hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to follow us, you can follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/Transcendental Transformation. You can check out the YouTube channel for the archive at youtube.com/Transcendental Transformation. Visit my website, soulandspiritguide.com, and sign up for the newsletter to receive VIP access to the website and special guest offers when we have guests. And again, email me at transcendentaltransformations@gmail.com. Make sure you check out the w4cy.com website, and always remember to believe in yourself. It's not our abilities or our talents that make us who we are, but it is our choices. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.